Hey, how you doing? I'm Adam Post, publisher of College of the Dead, publisher of more than 1,000 independent comic books, and someone who has been selling comic books as a publisher since the 1980s. I will say that in all those years, Diamond Comics, Steve Geppi's company, did always pay when they said they were going to pay, and they paid early. We paid them minor fees for that, and it really financed the whole comic book company. Recently, Diamond Comic Distributors stopped payments because of the huge health event, and then made 25% payments on owed balances and has a payment schedule, and they're getting back into the swing of things. But this is an interesting article in that it just kind of shows what's wrong with comic books today. Comic books just started reshipping to comic book stores, and this is really all Rich Johnson or Johnston from Bleeding Cool has to contribute to that. You know, he's busy looking at Steve Geppi's personal social media and trying to figure out what smart-ass, snarky, nonsensical thing he can say about it. Really, that's it. There have been a couple of articles here on Bleeding Cool talking about one retailer who got some damaged books with the sticker promotion. Here it is. Criticizing the Back the Comeback plan. Diamond basically trying to get people excited and enthusiastic about selling comics so they can promote them in their comic stores. I have no idea if it's going to work or not. But comics media's big contribution is this. They've uncovered this amazing information. Now, if you are friends with Steve Geppi on Facebook, you would already know that Steve has pictures of himself traveling, it looks like all over the world, but certainly in Las Vegas with beautiful young women that seem like they're all in bikinis. I don't know what the whole deal is with that. I don't know who they are. I think it's interesting. I was always like, well, all right, good for you, Steve. If you're rich and you want to travel, that looks like a fun thing to do. So here's Bleeding Cool's article. This is what you need to know about. With the whole comic book industry, this is the thing you need to be focused on. Steve Geppi's lack of social media filter and backing the comeback. So as Rich says here, Steve Geppi is the CEO and owner of Diamond Comic Distributors, also Alliance Games and a number of other collectibles-related companies, including the Overstreet Price Guide. And Steve Geppi has recently been appearing on YouTube channels and trying to reach out and communicate with people. He appears to have left the comic book distribution business in terms of a day-to-day operations level, you know, where he's still been the owner, but he hasn't been actively really working in it, working on the details of the business. His son has been doing that. He also has another executive team doing that, almost to the extent that he was semi-retired. But he came back when there was this big health event, and the operation got shut down for about 2 months. And now they just restarted shipping comic books. And Steve has been reaching out on YouTube channels and answering questions and trying to give information and let people kind of understand what he seems to think is going on with the comic book industry. In fact, the biggest channel he was on was this Fat Man Beyond with Kevin Smith, watched by millions of people. He was on smaller channels as well. And generally speaking, he did a pretty damn good job and was very enthusiastic. And it was interesting to see him. It was interesting to see him and see him talking. So, as Rich says here, the greater profile has also led some to see what else Steve Geppi had to say, including his social media feed. So because what Rich is saying was like, look, you put yourself out there, so that gives me the right to go and try to research your social media and see what I could find to post. Now, I don't know why he can't seem to get on Steve's Facebook, because Steve's got wild stuff on his Facebook page. But this is what he found on Twitter. This girl saying, I don't care if my bouncy tits make you uncomfortable in the summer. It's the summer and I'll wear a summer dress just like you. And there's Steve Geppi saying, best hits ever, you go girl. Is that really Steve's account? Yes. Yeah, I'm going to 99.9. I'm not Steve Geppi, but I'm going to 99.9% it that, yeah, that's his account. Now, understanding this, that not everybody also knows exactly how Twitter works. I don't know if Steve knows how it works. If I interview him, I'll ask him. But yeah, not everybody really even knows that if you directly message something openly on Twitter, that everyone can see it. But I don't know. Steve may know, may not know. At least Rich identifies here when Geppi posts messages of appreciation to adult performers online. It's only a click away. Now Bleeding Cool would like to affirm these are generally performers who Geppi already knows and who know him. Yeah, these are friends of Steve's. These messages are not unwelcome. Indeed, like those from others. They are sought after. So if Steve is busy complimenting them, what business does Rich Johnston have to do with it? It doesn't meet Rich's standards. You know what doesn't meet Rich's standards is there was no article, no interview with Steve Geppi and Rich Johnston. And probably not because Rich didn't reach out to him, because Steve just didn't get around to him yet. So this is a scorned woman who's upset that she didn't get her interview because he's just busy. So, yes, he admits these are women that Steve already knows. Best boobs ever. I don't know if they're the best boobs ever, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good. They're all right. Okay. Rich goes on to say, I'm aware such messages are being passed around the comics industry strewn of context, accompanied by some unkind words from certain people. But the messages are entirely in keeping appropriateness with a tweet to which they reply. These are wolf whistles directed to a stripper performing on stage, not someone walking on the street. I've not heard of any stories in which Steve Geppi has treated women at work or with the pop. Well, who's asking you? Yes, we're asking Rich to certify. Are there Me Too stories inside of Diamond Comics? We really need Rich Johnston's information on it. I mean, why is this a story? If he wanted to defend Steve Geppi, he could simply do an article saying, hey, if you see a wild tweet about Steve Geppi tweeting with some girl on Twitter, it's probably one of his stripper friends. End of story. Instead of all of this nonsense. Frankly, Steve Geppi probably doesn't care what you think. Yes, that's probably true. He's been around, he's seen it all, nothing, and he's not hurting anyone who would deny him a little fun. Yes. Steve is entitled to have fun, just like Rich Johnston, and God knows what Rich Johnston does for fun. We've been finding out that some people who don't like Comicsgate do bizarre things for fun. So God only knows what he does. Not going to judge him either. And I also suggest you don't judge Rich Johnston either. God knows what he might do. It's all in good fun, I'm sure. But here's his expert advice, that he's going to give a multi-millionaire. His expert advice is it may be an idea in the future to consider maintaining distinct social media accounts purely for appearance's sake. I'm going to say if he needed your advice, he would have responded to your request for an interview, Rich. You're nothing to Steve Geppi. I mean, he's too polite to say it, but if he responds and he does an interview with you, then he's interested in talking to you and he respects what your position is. He did an interview with Capital City Distributors Internal Correspondence Volume 2, their renewed publication, Milton Greep's publication. And maybe if you're polite, he'll do an interview with Bleeding Cool. But if you do get an interview with him, come up with something better than this. So this is Steve. Hey, and this is something good to learn. Something good to learn. Steve is telling Lindsay that she's beautiful and he'd like to meet her if she's ever in Baltimore, and he can probably show her a good time. Good for Steve. If you want something, ask for it. All right, so that's my video about this important subject, that Steve Geppi likes boobs. I also like boobs. He's not afraid to tell women he likes their boobs when he knows them already. Good for him. And somehow this is important news for Bleeding Cool and Rich Johnston. This is something that needed to be talked about. Rich, this is not going to get you any more respect from Steve Geppi. You're going to get that based on merit. Maybe you can get someone to recommend you to Steve Geppi. I certainly do know Steve Geppi, and I am not going to recommend you. In fact, having seen this, I'll shoot him a message and I'll say, Stay away from this guy Johnston. He's a weirdo. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Click the bell for notifications. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you. And don't forget to comment about this.